Hello. I haven't spoken yet this morning, and all of a sudden I couldn't speak. Hi, everybody. Um, Today is Tuesday, April 15th, and we're going to do some free verse. Um, this is poetry that is free from meter or rhyme. It generally follows the natural rhythm of speech, um, but it does not have any of the traditional accoutrement. You can, I said on one of the other slides that it didn't have any rules, and I don't know that that's a correct thing to say. Um, but it definitely doesn't follow the rules that you have to have meter or rhyme. So you're free from that. Here I go, pressing all the wrong buttons. I think it's the computer. Let's blame the computer and not me. So just so you know, the majority of poetry that's published since the early 20th century is free verse. It's the most popular form, um, started then, and that's just how how it's been published. All right, we're going to look at Church by Jacqueline Woodson. This comes from a book called Locomotion. It's about a boy named Lonnie. Um, Jacqueline Woodson is one of my favorites. I like her a lot. And we would be reading Brown Girl Dreaming this semester or this quarter, but since we are not at school, it's kind of difficult to get the book to you. So we will enjoy her poetry here instead. So on Sundays, the preacher gives everyone a chance to repent their sins. Miss Edna makes me go to church. She wears a bright hat. I wear my suit, baby's dress in lace. Girls my age, some pretty, some not so pretty, old ladies and men nodding. Miss Edna every now and then throwing her hand in the air, saying, "Yes, Lord, preach." I sneak a pen from my back pocket, bend down low like I dropped something. The chorus marches up behind the preacher, clapping and humming and getting ready to sing. I write the word hope on my hand. So, just like I mentioned, this is about a boy named Lonnie. When you're reading the book, you find out that he's actually his mom has died, and he has is in foster care with a woman named Miss Edna. You don't know that. This is pulled from that book. I'm just giving you a little background information in case you'd be interested in reading the book. It's called Locomotion. It's good. But we don't know that his name is Lonnie from Locomotion, but we do know that he is an adolescent boy. We know that he talks about girls his age looking pretty. We know that he is not an adult. He's not little. He's going to be in that nice little age like you guys. So the theme is religion. It's ritual. It's the process of being in church. And this was published in 2003. And obviously, it's free verse because we're talking about free verse. Um, but the plot is this guy is at church, right? And he's watching what's going on around him. And I say it like that because I feel like in this poem, we're getting this from Lonnie's point of view, but I feel like he's removed from it, right? Um, he, he's giving us the rundown. He's telling us about the preacher who's, he gives everyone a chance to repent their sins. He talks about Miss Edna. So it's not his family. He's there with a woman and she's making him go to church, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that he wants to go. But she makes him go. She's got on her hat. He's wearing his suit and the baby's dressed in lace. So he's kind of implying that there's a little bit of like, we do this thing, we all get dressed in our finest, um, and this is what we do. But in him telling that, he's also kind of standoffish about it. It's more of a general reporting from the field, not a general reporting from the field. In general, it's kind of like there's somebody that's reporting back what's happening rather than being in the war, they're reporting on the war. That makes sense. Um, the old ladies and men are there, and you get this visual of them nodding, like they believe what the preacher's saying. They're being moved by it. And then they're moved by it so much that he talks at Miss Edna every now and then raising her hand and saying, "Yes, Lord." And like you've either been to church, people are doing this, or you've seen it, where people are so moved by what they're saying that they're filled with the Spirit, and they're agreeing, and they are physically showing, affirmation of this is what I believe. Um, and I get the sense that it makes him feel a little uncomfortable. Um, because he's not doing any of that. He's only telling us about people doing that. And then what does he do? A very specific word. He sneaks a pen from his back pocket, right? And then he bends down low like he's dropped something. You know, he's doing these things that he knows that he's not supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be paying attention. He's supposed to be being moved by this. We've got the choir singing and the person talking, um, and then the chorus is marching up behind the preacher, and they're all getting you can feel it getting bigger. They're clapping and they're humming and they're getting ready to sing, and people um, are being moved. And as he's bent down and he has that pen, he writes hope on his hand, right? And he does it like that's a bad thing, but it's not. Obviously, there's something in what's happening that's giving him a reason to write hope on his hand. I mean, it's he's being moved by something, but he doesn't know how to put it into words. This stuff is happening around him. It feels foreign. He's not with his family. You find out in the book he's also not with his sister. He has a younger sister. Um, but we don't know that. We just feel his isolation a little bit. But at the end, because of what he wrote on his hand, there may be a little bit of um, hope when he wrote it. It's on his hand. He's feeling it a little bit. So, so I like this poem. I like this poem because as a person that grew up in a church, going many times a week, I know this. I know this scene, not this exact scene, but I know this scene. You guys may know it. Your church may not be like this, or it may be like this. I don't know. But it gives you get the real sense of being there and being there for the ritual of it, and and but also knowing what it's like must be like for an outsider, someone that doesn't feel comfortable there. And he feels uncomfortable for a number of ways. He's not with his family. It's not what he's used to. He's when you're adolescent, people start making you do things you don't necessarily want to do. You may have wanted to be in church when you were younger, and then when you get older, you may be like, I don't want to do that. And your parents or your family are like, no, we're coming. This is good for you. Come on, come with us. We have to go worship. Um, you know, so I think that he feels isolated, but even within that isolation and the standoffishness of being there, he has hope, right? He's finding it, his own brand, right? Even if it's sneaking around and writing it on his hand. Oop, go back. Why is this happening? Sorry. I always do these so early and my brain's not there. So we have imagery here. We have the bright hat and the babies in lace, and we've got the hum of the clapping and the humming, and we feel the movement of the choir as they're coming up behind the preacher because of the words that she uses, the imagery that she uses. There's a lot of senses that she ticks as she does this poem. And then we also have enjambment as a device. On Sundays, the preacher gives everyone a chance, back to the front of the line, to repent their sins, right? Miss Edna makes me go to church, back to the front of the line. Um, some not so pretty. It's kind of an awkward way to do it, but it adds to the rhythm of the poem. Um, and I think there's a little bit of symbolism here about him writing hope on his hand. He may not react in the same way that Miss Edna is, or people that are shouting, "Yes, Lord," or feeling it and shaking their head, or even repenting his sins. He talks about the preacher's giving everyone a chance to repent their sins. He's not one of those people. He's not doing that. But he does find hope, and he writes it on his hand. Um, and the punctuation in here is a regular style punctuation. So, anyway, I enjoyed that poem. I enjoy Jacqueline Woodson. I thought you guys might like that. So this is by Joseph Bruchac. Um, Once again, don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Um, it's called Prince. So let me read that one for you. Seeing photos of ancestors a century past is like looking at your own fingerprints, circles and lines you can't recognize until someone else with a stranger's eye looks close and says, "That's you." I like this poem. I think it's simple. I know this feeling. I've been this person. Um, and when I read it, I thought you guys might like it. So we don't know who the speaker is, but obviously it's someone that has photos of their family. The theme is family, lineage, where we come from. And this was published in 2011, and it's free verse. So, I mean, this is a pretty simple plot. Um, the speaker is looking at these poems, and obviously with somebody else, because we talk about till a stranger's eye comes in. But he's looking at photos of ancestors, and you look at them, and I mean, they look like they might as well be ghosts. When we see pictures of our family, I mean, they're separate people from us, but we don't know them if they're ancestors. I mean, if we're looking at great great grandparents, you know, we only hear stories about them. We don't actually know them. And then we don't necessarily see ourselves in them. I mean, there could be a remarkable um, trait that stands out, but we don't see it. In the same way that when I look at my children, I don't see me. And then someone will come up and say, "Your daughter looks just like you. Oh my goodness, you guys are twins." And I'm like, I don't see it. I see my husband. I can't see myself in them. Um, in the same way that you can't sometimes see yourselves in these old photos of your family. And it's a strange thing, and then all of a sudden, he talks about that feeling when someone else from the outside comes in and points out and says looks close and says, "That's you, that I see that they've got your nose, or you've got their nose," or, pointing out that you guys look alike. And, sometimes it takes somebody from the outside to be able to see something like that. Um And there's this great word, oh, I love it, it's called atavistic, and the first time I saw it, it was just one of those words that were burned into my brain. An atavistic trait is something that skips generations. Um, so your great-grandfather may have the same curly hair as you, whereas for some reason your grandfather and your father do not. And to have that trait is called an atavistic trait because it skips generations, but it is in your lineage. It just has lain dormant for 2 generations. And it's a thing that you can have, and it can go all the way through. I mean, you can have traits that your grandfather has, your mother has, like, and then you wind up with. But there are also traits that only show themselves every couple of whatever, um, and, I just love that word. I just had to bring that word up because I think about it when I think about ancestry, because um, I have my great-grandmother's hair. It's really weird, like, the same texture, the same everything, and no one else in my family does. It's just one of those weird, I don't know. I like the thought of you having something of someone that you've never met, and that it was passed down. So there's not any meter or rhyme in this poem, but it has a nice, lovely, natural way of uh, sonically, it's just nice. We have a simile, I mean, pretty much the whole thing is a simile. You know, seeing these photos is like looking at your own fingerprints, and then he expounds on that, on why that's true. Um, and the imagery, you know, he talks about the circles and lines of your fingerprints that you can't really make sense of, but we know. I'm so sorry. We know that it's an individualistic thing that we have, that our fingerprints are ours and ours alone. And then there's a little bit of a paradox in here too, that it takes a stranger to see family traits, family resemblance, because it shouldn't be that it takes a stranger to see that, but it takes someone from outside of it to be able to look at it with a fresh perspective, right? But I think it's that way in a lot of situations. It just seems like it shouldn't be. And the punctuation is regular punctuation, but it is very sparse. We have an M dash, and we have a period. You know, that's it. Um, and our punctuation is regular as well, but it is pretty much one sentence. So I kind of like it though. I love this poem. It's a great thing. Um, so this is just for fun, and please don't take me as for serious about this. It's called Another Reason Why I Don't Keep a Gun in the House. Now, I am not condoning guns or warfare in this, but I think it's funny and I think you like dogs, so I thought you might appreciate it. This is by Billy Collins. We read Introduction to Poetry by him, and this is about a dog. The neighbor's dog will not stop barking. He is barking the same high, rhythmic bark that he barks every time they leave the house. They must switch him on their way out. The neighbor's dog will not stop barking. I close all the windows in the house and I put on a Beethoven symphony full blast, but I can still hear him muffled under the music. And now I can see him sitting in the orchestra, his head raised so confidently as if Beethoven had included a part for a barking dog. When the record finally ends, he is still barking, sitting there in the oboe section, barking, his eyes fixed on the conductor who is entreating him with his baton, while the other musicians listen in respectful silence to the famous barking dog solo, that endless coda that first established Beethoven. Where is it? Oh no, I can't read. Where is my line? That first established, hold on, Beethoven as an innovative genius. I had to click out just to be able to see it. Um, so this poem is completely ridiculous. Billy Collins is talking about how the dog is barking, barking, barking. It happens every time the people leave the house. So much so that he's like, okay, I'm going to turn on Beethoven and I'm going to drown him out. And then all I can picture is the dog sitting in there and he's part of it because he's still barking so incessantly that it's in the middle of his symphony. And one of the things that Collins does very well is that he turns it on its head and makes it funny. And so instead of it just being that he's some part of the symphony, it's as if Beethoven was an innovative genius that wrote a part for a barking dog. Um, and that the conductor is sitting there and conducting him, which is funny to me. So combines two of my favorite things: symphonies, dogs, hilarity. So your homework is to write a free verse poem. It doesn't matter what the subject is. I hope that that doesn't trip you up because I know having all of the options in the world can actually be worse than me giving you something to do. I don't want it to be. If you need a subject, if you want me to assign something to you, I will give you a subject. If not, write about whatever you please. And it doesn't matter the length. I'm not going to require you to write 10 lines. I would rather it not be just one or two, but if you make your point, if you if it's lyrical and beautiful and wonderful and all of those things, startling, shocking, I'm just saying words at this point. Um, it doesn't matter. I just want you to write a free verse poem. I want you to experiment with the non-meter, non-rhyme poem. Um, and that is due on the following Monday. Sorry, we've had so many not many holidays, but odd holidays that I don't know when, and we're excited. So, that's it. Thanks, guys, and let me know if you have any questions or if you need a subject.